Thursday afternoon, 6 o'clock. Actually, big crisis today because there are 3 appointments at the same time that are super interesting. It was really hard to choose between women in power, Nichilism in the Russian power, and a talk about architecture, which is a topic that is very interesting to me. But I chose the second one because it's about philosophy and that's my specialty, so I guess I have to. Okay, unfortunately, I missed the first part because there were no seats left, so I had to wait that someone would go out. This was a specifically philosophical talk, and the main purpose was to try to understand the Russian culture, especially the meaning of power in the Russian culture and the nihilism of power. So because nihilism was the main topic of the talk, I'm gonna focus on this part because they talk about so many different things. The classic Russian nihilism was the one of the socialist and anarchist revolutionary people. They are so dedicated to the cause that even poetry or culture in general is something to avoid because it switches the focus to something else. The nihilist in Russia is ascetic and is hyper moral as well. So this is a big difference between the European nihilism and the Russian nihilism. Our nihilism, the European one, is based on the fact that behind the phenomena, behind what we see, there is nothing. It's just an idea. Whereas the Russian nihilism, it already starts from a truth. It's all focused on what to do because the truth is already there. Whereas the European nihilism thinks about what is truth, what is what we see, what is behind what we see, which is the phenomena. That's why the Russian nihilism is so hyper moral, and the objective is to be as least corrupted by the process of civilization as possible. So they think if we are more cruel, at least it means that we are more pure. That's the type of mentality that's there. But this whole talk was very interesting to dig a bit deeper into the Russian culture. It's something that I haven't done much myself. I wish I could read more about Russian culture, especially seeing the recent events. I wish I could understand their point of view better, because I feel like there is just such a big gap between the Western way of thinking and the Russian way of thinking. And this talk was a good introduction to understanding the Russian culture better. The 7:30 p.m. appointment was titled Deglobalization, a new geography of power. And it was packed with people. The room, or better, the church, was completely full. The extra seats outside of the church were completely full, and there were many people sitting randomly outside or standing in the back. And this was mainly because the main guest of this appointment was Lucio Caracciolo. Lucio Caracciolo is a university professor, expert in geography of politics and of economy, and he's mostly famous for having founded and being the director of the monthly magazine of geopolitics, Limes. His contribution has been very broad in its topics. The topics were mainly 3. First, the world after globalization. Second, the de-dollarization
of the global economy, and third, the age of chaos. So globalization has been a tendency that has started after the Second World War and went on up to the first years of this new millennium. Right now, even the word itself has entered a sort of a crisis, and when words start losing meaning, that's the symptom of a bigger crisis in the world. He talked about chaos land, what he calls chaos land, which is this area of big conflicts, military, but also crisis of institutions or military regimes. We have two big areas of global value, let's say, the Russian-American war in Ukraine on one side, and on the other side, the confrontation between United States and China, which is located in the center and Southeast Asia, which is the main focus for Americans because it's where they are going to defend their leadership position in the global dynamics. He says that it seems today that we are making wars not to have a better peace at the end of the war, but just to make war. And the biggest example of this are the preventive wars. He's talked about the sentiment of resentment. He says that it's not a psychological category anymore, not only, but it's become a strategic category. So he took Putin as example. He is fundamentally pro-West, but he finds himself to have to collaborate with Chinese because Russia is not taken seriously by the United States. So again, resentment. China has no ideological aversion towards the United States. On the contrary, they are sort of united through the desire of getting richer quicker. Then he focused the attention on the American empire. He says America feels itself like a missionary country. It organizes its own presence in the world as a country that rejects colonies because they know that colony would mean friction and wars. And then they have the big advantage of not sharing their borders with basically any other country. So they have a very big margin of error. They can allow themselves to make mistakes, especially they can allow themselves to try several different tactics and several different things and fail at them until they find the right strategy. Then he talked about the European empire of the United States. This war is not done by NATO, but it's done by the single countries that are in the NATO. They do it in ways and in measures that are very different. The United States have been betting on Poland as a place to block any type of agreement between Russia and Germany. He went on about this a little bit. He said that the Nord Stream has been dismantled, let's say, last summer in mysterious circumstances. It's been the end of the energetic interdependence between Russia and Germany. Russia used to be dependent by the European market, but it's not anymore. Turkey is part of NATO, but nowadays it starts to resonate in terms of empire again. About Germany, he said that there are really two Germanys. The East is still very much pro-Russia, and the rest is just confused. Lastly, he talked about the effect of sanctions, that they have basically not been having any effect on Russian economy. On the contrary, Russian economy this year will be growing. The other guest, Luciana Borsatti, is a journalist and a writer. She's been a correspondent from El Cairo and Tehran. She focused more on the geopolitics of people moving. She said, ethics should be based on reality, otherwise it just becomes a parallel world where you think that you are being a good person. So first we need to understand how things are really working, and then we resonate on how to act upon them, how to organize our action. She talked quite a bit about what we call accoglienza, which I would translate in English with hospitality or welcoming. It's a huge topic in Europe, especially in Italy, because it is related to how we are welcoming the immigrants, the refugees that are coming to our countries. And it's one of the main topic of discussions of internal politics in Italy in the past 15 to 20 years. Borsatti stresses the fact that accoglienza, the welcoming, receiving these people, is not a choice in our world. It has become a necessity. Because the alternative to this is a sort of intermittent war, because for demographic and economic reasons, they are going to keep trying to come here. So we need to build the ability to create controlled streams of incoming people that has to be done in a legal form, in a legal way.